Okay, in this video I'm going to do the remainder of problem 7 in the review sheet. And in the last video I went over problem A, part A, which was already solved for you. And I'll just summarize that here quickly. And we've got access control list with 4 entries here. And what this is showing is that we're permitting a range. So first of all, this is all the actions happening within the last octet of the IP address. So we're within a class C. We're essentially looking at subnets of a class C here, and we are permitting those a subnet of 16 addresses starting at address 64. So if we go to 64, we permit a block of size 16 here. This is permit, and this is step number 1. We're then denying a block of width 32 starting at the same address 64. So this is step 2, this deny of this block of 32 addresses. Finally, we're permitting a block of width 256 starting at address 0. That is, we're permitting the entire rest of the block here. And then there's an implicit deny after that. And so we can label this diagram with permits and denies and number them 1, 2, and 3 like this. And what this gives us then is this gives us essentially you can draw your pencil across here to see which sections are permitted and which are denied. Anything in this first 64 addresses will be permitted by P3, by the third line. Okay. The next 16 addresses will also be permitted by the first line. Now we have 16 addresses which are denied by the second line. And then everything from here on out is permitted. And so this essentially comes down to a picture that looks like this. We're going to permit all the way up to here. We're going to deny this narrow range, 16 addresses, and then we're going to permit from there on out. Okay, and you can see then how this could be simplified with a 2-entry ACL rather than a 4-entry ACL. Okay, so let's do the other problems and do the same thing here. Part B has 3 entries, and they are 3 permits, all of subnets of size 32 addresses. And so we're going to be working in this at this level of the diagram here. And one starts at address 64. So I go over to 64 and I'm going to permit from there. The next one starts at 128 and I'm going to permit from there a block of width 32. And then the next one starts at 160, which is 128 plus 32. I'm going to permit a block of 32 from there. And then you have to remember that there's an implicit deny beyond that. And so we can summarize this by making a diagram here. We can see that everything in the first 64 addresses is going to be denied. We're going to have a permit in the next 32 addresses. The implicit deny will deny the next 32 addresses. And then I have 2 blocks of 32 in a row, or 64, that are going to be permitted, and then implicit deny from there on out. Okay, so this is the summary then of what happens to these 256 addresses, which will be permitted and which will be denied. Okay? Part C. We'll do the same thing. Again, it's very easy once you get the hang of it. We're going to deny a block of width 32 starting at address 64. We're going to deny a block. In line 1, we're going to deny a block of width 32 starting at address 64. We're going to then deny a block of width 32 starting at address 96. 64 plus 32 is 96, so we're going to deny this block. Next, we're going to permit a block of width 32 starting at address 128. I'll label that P3 because we're going to permit, and it's line number 3. Finally, we're going to deny or we're going to deny a block of width 128 starting at 128. So we're going to go over to address 128 and we're going to deny a block of width 128. Finally, we're going to permit of width 255 starting at 0, we're going to permit the rest of the class C network. So we're going to put a P5 up there. So we can summarize this. We sort of just draw our pencil across here and we say, look, the first 64 addresses are going to be permitted. We're going to have a block of 64 which is denied. Then we're going to have 32 which are permitted. And then the rest of them are going to be denied. And you can see that P5 only really affects this first 64 blocks. In any case, this is then the pattern of permits and denies within this 256, this Class C IP address space. Okay, and we'll see using these pictures in problem 8, we can very often simplify an access control list like this to use fewer steps. In any case, this gives you a visual representation of what it's like to set up an access control list for a Class C network. Part D is similarly done. I'm going to permit a block of width 32 starting at address 160. 160 is 128 plus 32. So I'm going to permit, and I'll call that P1. Then I'm going to deny a block of width 64 starting at address 128. Then I'm going to permit a block of width 128 starting at address 128. Finally, I'm going to deny a block of width 256 starting at address 0. And so this is the pattern of permits and denies in order that we're seeing here. And so if I scan across this, we're going to see that deny 4 applies here over the first 128 addresses. That the next block of 32 is denied by D2. That's denied also. The next block of 32 is permitted by P1. And then the last 64 addresses are actually permitted by P3. And so we could simplify this and just say everything up to address number, 128 plus 32, up to 160 is denied, and everything beyond that is permitted in this case. Okay, and obviously we could simplify this access control list based on that insight that we have. Okay, so that's problem 7. Hope that helps.